Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. My name is Victoria and today we are going to be talking about my favorite books of the year so far. So I meant to do this video ages ago, but we're finally doing it. It is late at night when I'm filming this, so if I look a little tired or if I go a little quickly, that's why. I'm trying to, it's also so hot right now, so I am like full sweating. So if you see, if I look a little shiny, we're not going to talk about it. But I'm very excited to talk about this video because I love talking about my favorite books, and this video is all favorite books of the year. So I have read some really good books so far this year. I have a pretty good list. I just wrote down the ones that came to the top of my head. Like there's no like top 10 or they're not in any order. It's just like in the order in which I wrote them down. So I am really excited to get in and talk about these books. So we're just gonna get right to it. So the first one that I have is one that I've talked about a ton since I've read it because I literally love it and I'm obsessed with it so much. That is Under the Stars by Laura Pavlov. This is book 2 in her Cottonwood Cove series. You could totally read it as a standalone, like without reading the first one. I actually read this one before I read the first one, and it's just so freaking good. This is a grumpy sunshine workplace CEO assistant. It's not really like billionaire hero, but it like gives those vibes because he is like a successful CEO. The heroine has amazing family dynamics with her siblings. They have like their own sibling group chat, which is so funny, and they're all very close, which I love. And this is like grumpy hero to the max. He definitely is just like absolutely grumpy. He has a nickname for the heroine. He calls her Tink, which is just so cute. She is so princess and yet so sassy, like sunshiny, princessy, sassy. I loved her. She was so quick to put him in his place. But he softened her so much. The banter was so good, and I just had the absolute best time reading this book, and I loved it so much. I gave it 5 stars, and I knew once I read it that it would probably end up on my top favorites of the year for this year because it's just so good. The second one that I have is Brutal Vows by J.T. Geisinger. This is an entirely different vibe than Under the Stars, but loved it just as much. And this one is a mafia romance. So this is book 4 in the Queens and Monsters series by J.T. Geisinger. I actually would recommend reading the other books in the series just because you get more of a full picture and it does make a little bit more sense. But the couple itself is a standalone couple for Brutal Vows, but this one is about a hero named Spider who is a member of the Irish Mafia, and he needs to marry an Italian woman in order to bond the families, and so he ends up being in an arranged marriage with the daughter of the head of the Italian mob. But the daughter who he's supposed to marry is only 18 years old and absolutely does not want this marriage. And so her sort of protect her is her aunt Raina. And Raina has previously been married, and she killed her husband. Her husband was absolutely abusive. He was horrible, and she actually killed her husband. And she is this absolute badass woman, and she's basically like, this marriage will not happen. Like, I'm going to protect you. And it is so freaking good. Spider ends up having, this is a romance between Spider and Raina, and so Spider comes to meet the woman he's supposed to marry, and she does not want to marry him. She's so young, but he meets Raina and they butt heads so much. She is so fiery, but the personalities work so much better. Like, Spider doesn't want a wife that's just going to be like not participating. He wants somebody who will clap back at him. He wants somebody who he can talk with and have an argument with, and like, they both have such strong personalities and they complement each other so well. They work so well together, and I absolutely loved this romance. If you're gonna read this, listen to the audiobook because the accent, Spider is Irish and the accent is so good. It was done so well, and I would highly recommend it. The next two that I have are actually the same author, and that is Elsie Silver. Heartless I read this year and I absolutely loved it. This is one of the books that was like top favorite last year for so many people, and I didn't read it until the beginning of this year and I loved it. I totally get why people love it so much. It is a single father age gap nanny romance. The heroine Willa is so relatable. I loved her so much, and she has such an amazing banter relationship with the hero Cade, who is just epitome book boyfriend. He is so good. I love a single father. I love the like can't stay away from the nanny, but I should, so it's a little bit forbidden because she is the nanny for his son. Willa is not like, she doesn't have like nanny experience. She's not somebody who's like you think of as like very like kid friendly, but she is becomes so protective of Cade's child, and I loved that. I loved how close they grew, and I absolutely loved this romance. It was so freaking good, and I totally get why people love it so much. However, I then read Reckless by Elsie Silver, which came out this year, and this one blew me out of the water. This book is my favorite in this Chestnut Spring series. I love this book, and it is 100% without a doubt going to be in my top 5 books of the year this year. I am obsessed with this book, which is shocking because it is surprise pregnancy. So the heroine in this one is named Winter, and I have wanted Winter's book since the first book in the series, which is Flawless. I even said, I have a vlog reading Flawless on my channel, and I even said in that video that I wanted Winter's book. So I just like foreshadowed how much I would freaking love this. So Winter has had a difficult relationship with her parents. Everyone kind of thinks that she's bitchy, that she's awful, and she is a secret softie, and I adored her. And she ends up having a one-night stand with Theo Silva, who is Rhett from the first book, Flawless. It's Rhett's like protege, so he is a bull rider, and they have a one-night stand, and she gets pregnant, and she tries to contact him and tell him about it, and she ends up raising this child on her own. So she ends up going through the pregnancy and having the baby, and Theo is nowhere to be found. Then the child is now like a year old or something, and she's never told anyone who the father is, and Theo comes back to town, and he finds out that he's a father, and it turns out that he actually didn't know, and there was a communication problem he never got the message, and he finds out that he's a father, and he goes all in. 100% all in. The dedication that this man shows to his child and shows to Winter is amazing. It's so stunning, and the swooning and melting that I felt like reading about this man, oh my freaking god, I love him. Love him. And I love Winter too. She's such a badass, and like people don't realize it, and Theo realizes it, and he is always going to be the one that comes to her defense, because like I said before, people think that she's bitchy, but she has this secret soft side that she uses her almost like bitchiness as a defense, and also to like protect herself from getting broken, or even more broken than she already is. And I understood her, and I loved her, and I loved Theo for loving her. And this book is amazing. So if you have never read it and you don't like surprise pregnancy, it's not like any other surprise pregnancy that I've ever read. It is phenomenal. Go read it. Okay, the next one that I have is Chloe Leese. You always know I love Chloe Leese. I've given almost every single one of the books that I've read by her 5 stars, but this one I loved so much, and that is If Only You. It's her new one in the Bergman series, and it's a Bergman sister. This one is about Ziggy and Sebastian. So Ziggy is a soccer player? I think she's a soccer player, and she is the youngest sibling in the Bergman family, and she's also autistic, and a lot of her siblings and her family have very much treated her like a child for her entire life, and she is now a grown-ass adult. She's in her 20s, she lives on her own, and she wants to be seen as an adult. She wants to be seen as, I can handle myself. I don't need your help with everything. And she and Ren, her older brother's best friend, Sebastian, end up having a fake friendship because Sebastian is a hockey player and he has a bad boy reputation, and he needs to nicen up his reputation. He needs it to be a little less bad boy and a little nicer. And Ziggy wants to actually darken her reputation because she's so sick of being treated like a baby, like a child. She's like, if I have a little bit of a darker reputation, then people will see that I'm an adult and they'll take me seriously. And so they decide to have a fake friendship where they, by hanging out together, one will darken up the others, one will nicen up the others. So I loved this fake friendship because with the fake friendship, they're hanging out, they're constantly together, and it develops into this very, very real friendship, which then develops into more. And I adored this. I adored this. Sebastian also gets diagnosed with celiac disease during the book, which I related to. Don't have celiac, but I have almost every single one of the symptoms that you have related to celiac disease, so I understood some of his struggles, especially being diagnosed later in life, and I just loved their relationship. Ziggy is a reader and loves fantasy romance, and Sebastian takes her on a bookstore date. He dresses up like her favorite fantasy romance hero. It's just, their relationship is so swoon-worthy and amazing and adorable, and I loved it. Next one that I have is Pack Darling by Lola Rock. This is actually an Omegaverse duet. The second book in the series is my favorite, but I did also adore the first one. Just as a whole, the duet together is so freaking good. Like I said, it's Omegaverse. It's also Why Choose. The heroine in book one, she basically is an orphan. She's been raised by the state, and she is blackmailed into joining a pack of alphas. But when she gets to the pack, she realizes that the alphas do not want her there. They don't like her. They already have an alpha. They already have an omega. They don't want her in their pack. And so they basically spend the entire book bullying her. They're so mean to her, and they are trying to get her to leave. And they don't realize that she's being blackmailed into being there. And so then in the second book, they realize how much they fucked up, and they grovel and do things to change their relationship in order to get her back. I loved this romance. I was so captivated the entire time. It was so full of intrigue. There were so many things that I was trying to guess. I loved all the relationships. They are so different. I say this every time I talk about Why Choose Romance, but I love how many tropes are in it and how different each of the relationships between each of the heroes and the heroine is. I just think it's so fun. It adds so much more to a story because you have like so many stories in one, so many relationships in one, and I love it. So I definitely love this romance, and if you like Omegaverse, I would highly recommend this duet. Next one I have is an MM book, and that is Not All Himbos Wear Capes by C. Rochelle. I had wanted to read this book since I first saw Tiffany from Neverland Pixie talk about it, and when it came out on audio, I had to get it. And oh my god, it's so fun. It's so good. I had such a fun time reading this, and I was a little bit shocked with how much I enjoyed this because I thought that I would just like it and that it would be kind of fun, but this one was so much more than I expected it to be. It was like a parody of superheroes, but also had so much emotional depth to it, and I was just like shocked. So basically this book is a romance between a superhero and a supervillain, but they both think that the other one is a normie. They both think that the other one is a normal human because they don't recognize each other like as a normal person without their like hero identities. And they met on a dating app and they start dating, and each one thinks the other one is a normie, and it's so funny, like the actual start to their relationship dynamic is so freaking good, and I adored like the actual like world of the superheroes. Like I said, it almost felt like a parody of superheroes because it was like the names and things were so funny and ridiculous, but it was like, felt like I was reading a fan fiction, but in the absolute best way. Like I felt like I had so much already background knowledge that you could then build the story on top of, and it was so fun. I hope that the rest of the series comes out on audio because I am dying to read book 2 because of the ending of book 1. Like the ending of book 1 with one of the characters, I'm like, the character that I loved, his name is the Hand of Death. That is his like supervillain name. It's the Hand of Death, and I am dying for his book, and that's book 2. So I'm really hoping book 2 comes out on audio soon. But I adored this, and I'm definitely gonna have to read more from C. Rochelle because this was my first one by her, and it was so freaking fun, so freaking good, and I loved it. Okay, the last one that I have for this list is actually one that I just read like 2 weeks ago, and that is the Mindf series. I am not putting like one specific book on here because I really don't, I read them back to back to back, and I really couldn't tell you what happens in each specific book, like what happens in what book. I really thought of this as one large book. Like each of these books is only like 180 pages. So I basically thought of it as like one large book, and that's what I'm like putting it on as my thing. Plus, when you download it on Kindle or like buy a paperback, it does come like, you can get it in like one whole book. So that's basically what it felt like to me. So I'm just including this as one, but I adored this. If you don't know, this is a serial killer romance. The heroine's name is Lana, and she is a killer. She kills men who have wronged her, and she has a horrific past. Some of the things that happen to her is just like shockingly disgusting and horrific, and I got to a point where I was like, yes, kill those men. Fuck all of them, kill those men. And so she's had a really horrific past, and she ends up meeting a guy in a coffee shop, and he turns out to be a profiler for the FBI. He profiles serial killers, and they start dating, and then her case, the people she has killed, the case of her serial killing persona comes across his desk, and he starts investigating her case, but not knowing that she is actually the killer. And it was so fun. It's so dark. It's so dark. Be prepared. Like, you really do need to prepare yourself if you're gonna read this, because it was so dark. There are really intense things in it. And it's so good though. Like, I had such an amazing time. I loved this book. That's the last one that I have, so I don't know how many that was, but I feel really happy about the books that I've read so far this year. I've read a slower this year. I haven't been reading as many books, but I've been taking the time to really enjoy and like consume each of the books that I'm reading, which I am so happy with. But that's it for this video. So like this video if you liked it, subscribe, stick around, see more of my videos, and let me know down in the comments what your favorite book of the year so far is. That's gonna be it, so I hope that you have the absolute best day. Bye!